Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry for all the trouble getting in here.
Nah, we are good. Todd Hagopian, people. He is the Stagnation Assassin, and he has transformed businesses at Berkshire Hathaway's, Illinois Toolworks, Whirlpool Corporation, JBT Marvel, selling over $3 billion of products to the biggest names in retail. As founder of the Stagnation Intelligence Agency, he is the authority on stagnation syndrome and corporate transformation. Hagopian doubled his own manufacturing business acquisition value in just 3 years before selling while generating over $2 billion in shareholder value across his corporate roles. He has written more than 1,000 pages, coming soon to toddhagopian.com, of books, white papers, implementation guides, and masterclasses on corporate stagnation transformation. First of all, tell me how your journey began. Why did you feel the need to start, and what is the Stagnation Intelligence Agency?
Yeah, so great question. About 8 years ago, I was kind of flying high in business, but I had this thing where every time I did something good, something terrible would happen. And I couldn't get control of my personal life. And I'm talking a couple arrests, almost losing my marriage, all this stuff. And I finally decided to go in and try and figure out what was wrong. Like, what is causing me to act this way? And I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that could have been a business killer. You know what I mean? It could have destroyed my career. And I started taking the meds, and I felt better, got calmer,
Todd,
Yep.
Sorry to cut you off,
Yep.
brother, but I'm just curious. The moment you were diagnosed, that sounds like that would be a bad thing, but I almost imagine that was a huge relief because it gave an understanding to a lot of the complications in your life, because there's nothing worse than being confused.
Yeah.
So you might have a problem now, but at least you know what you're solving.
Yeah. And it was really interesting, actually. The first 3 months or so of the diagnosis, I actually liked it because they were explaining how hypomania does all the stuff that was good in my life, all the things that were going well. Now there's the drop, the bipolar depression that was causing all the bad stuff, and hypomania a little bit. But I was like, this is great. I don't even need the pills. I like the fact that I have this, and I'm going to lean into it, kind of thing. And that did not work. So then I had to take the pills, and that did not work. I was like, now I can stay up 23 hours a day instead of 22, and it's fine. You know what I mean? Because I got bipolar. So now I can just say that's why. That did not work. So then I started taking the pills, and the pills did calm me down. They got my personal life under control. The issue is that they completely dulled my hypomanic edge. So all the stuff that was great about me, that was making me get promoted faster, making me hit these goals, just came back. And so it was almost like you can be Tony Stark or you can be Tony Stagnation. You know what I mean? It was like, that's the difference. And I was like, man, I was like, sanity versus success. That's not fair. How can I make that choice? So how this was all born was me saying, okay, I need to bottle up the stuff that I was doing and systematize it so that I can be healthy on the meds, but also remind myself like how to tackle innovation, how to tackle continuous improvement, how to set goals, how to look at effort. And that's basically how it was all born. So I wanted to make it so that I could replicate it while healthy.
Two things. First and foremost, that must have been a tough decision to make, because you have the downs that are so detrimental, but you have the ups that are so empowering and euphoric. And, it's something like, how do I just get the ups? But this medication took away both.
They did.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to find a way to keep the top and mitigate and minimize the downs.
Yeah.
And so I find that fascinating. And also the second point here is like, you've said something very interesting. At least I read it in the bio, how you weaponize your bipolar disorder. And I'm like the poster boy for ADHD. As a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was given the strongest dose of Ritalin. And it's always like, oh, we're going to help you solve this problem. And to some extent, that's coming from a good place. But I thought what was even better, and it kind of came to me over time, where I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to weaponize it. I'm going to use it to my advantage. I can't focus on one thing. That's okay. Learn how to focus really well and be just highly functioning and doing multiple things.
That's right.
and use your disability to your advantage to where you can develop a uniqueness factor on top of it,
Yep.
right? So you turn your, you turn your curses into a blessing kind of
Yep.
thing.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly where this came from, and I did it silently for about 8 years, and I turned around 4 businesses, and then this
Wow.
last year, I was like, "You know what? I think that I can teach people how to do this. I think I can actually show people that the bipolar hypomania is an asset. Not only that, but I can teach people with normal minds how to do it, and at the same time, secondary benefit to your point is to show that divergent thinking is not a bad thing. And you probably wouldn't be surprised because I'm sure you hear it all the time with the people you talk to. There's a lot of us out there that
Yeah.
have divergent thinking and are successful in business because of it. You know what I mean? And people are it's got this bad stigma, especially bipolar disorder, right? Has this horrible stigma. And I wanted to show people that there are aspects of it that a lot of super rich billionaire, innovators have had. And then B, you can use some of this stuff. Even if you just grab the 2 things that you like and implement it, it can take you to the next level in your career.
Very, very interesting. You've turned what many consider a disability into a competitive business advantage. Can you talk to us how, through having bipolar, you formed this hot system?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So if you think about just a couple aspects of the hot system that'll make a lot of sense when it comes to bipolar. So grandiose goal setting, right? If Michael says he's gonna, grow his business at 6%, and he ends up growing it at 9%. He does well, he beats his goal, this and that. If I come in and say, hey, I'm going to grow my business at 40% next year, and I only get to 15%, I'm still getting the promotion because you grew at 8 and I grew at 15. But everyone's got this, under promise, over deliver mindset. And I always say under promising and over delivering is for losers. Pick a grandiose
Mm,
goal, try and hit it. You're never going to get to 40% if your goal was 6. You know what I mean? So you have to set these huge goals and then get your team on board driving towards these huge goals, and that's how you get these monster results.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. And it's like also it's twofold. I think that the goals we make today should be so unimpressive tomorrow.
right.
And I think we should set these milestones. That's why I ask people, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah,
Because in 5 years from now, they listen to that and they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. I accomplished
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And also I think our goals should just always just be out of reach. I
right.
totally agree with you.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I absolutely love your mindset.
yeah,
Now, so explain to me like how you so what now, okay, you got this hot
yeah.
concept. Now how does it apply to your life and how does it apply to your work? And
Sure.
tell
Yeah.
me more about it.
Yeah, so the HOT system stands for Hypomanic Operational Turnaround System. So it's designed specifically for turnaround situations or even situations where you're in stagnation, which is a huge, huge underserved community in business, right? We see a lot of growth consulting. We see a lot of crisis consulting, which is really where the turnaround comes in. And then there's this huge area in between where they're stagnating, less innovation, you know, less change, less they're scared of sacrificing the sacred cows. They don't want to do any of this stuff, and they're starting to drop down towards crisis. And this is the area of time in a company's career where they can turn it around and get back to growth if they attack stagnation. And that's where this hot system really comes in is, okay, this is how you set grandiose goals. This is how you
Mm,
do 52 continuous improvement projects in 52 weeks. This is how you explode your productivity. I've got this Karelin method, and it's basically activity times efficiency, which everybody kind of gets, right? Activity, how many calls do I make, times efficiency, what percentage do I get closed? You know what I mean? The one part that people don't get is this third part, and it's times focus. So activity times efficiency times focus. If you were to work 10% or sorry, 20% harder than everybody, so 20% more hours, and you got 20% more efficient through systematizing, automating, AI, outsourcing,
wow.
whatever makes you more efficient, right? You get 20% more efficient, then you're 44% more efficient than the guy next to you. But if you take
Wow.
all 48 of your hours a week and put it
Right.
towards the 20% of activities that drive 80% of your results, you've suddenly working 30 to 40 hours on the really important stuff when the other guy might
Right.
only be working 8 or 10, and now you're
Right.
300% more productive.
Right. It's a two-pronged approach. It's not it's just it's mentally how you kind of approach it, and
Mm,
also the tools you're using, you're leveraging. It's, work smarter, not necessarily harder kind of
yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned AI. I mean, well, first and foremost, what kind of companies? So you do more like consulting. Like you'll step in there, you'll be like, "Are you guys suffering from stagnation? Let me learn a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah.
Here's the plan I propose. Let's
So
start implementing it."
up until now, believe it or not, I am actually the executor. So I write a lot from a consulting standpoint, but I was the president. So I get dropped into a company that's bad. I make a bunch of changes. I turn around the company, and then 2 years later, they find another
Wow.
company for me to drop in and do. So I've actually been the guy in those companies, turning them around. So that's where I've been is just taking $50 million companies and turning them into $70 million companies, or taking $80 million companies and turning them into $100 million companies.
Very cool.
Mhm.
What is so is there like a common denominator between companies? And
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you ask that, because I always say it really doesn't matter. So in 2020, I was building $45 shopping carts. Right now, I'm building $1.5 million food machines. And all of these concepts work in both scenarios. In 2020 to 2024, I was running my
interesting.
own company. In the other three turnarounds, I was Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000. They all work. It doesn't matter if you're a $2 million company or a $14 billion company. These things work in every scenario.
That's interesting because I would imagine when you're with a $100 company, the problems, the scalability issues are unrecognizably different
Yeah.
from $1,000 company
Mhm.
than from a $1 million company.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's a common issue. Like scaling is one of the hardest challenges in
Yep.
a company.
Mhm.
It's because you can have these inefficiencies in the beginning that you can brute force yourself through.
Yep.
You can have these initial conditions that aren't really a big problem, but these initial conditions kind
Mhm.
of manifest themselves into complete ceilings
Yep.
once you reach a certain number
Yep.
of some metric. So,
Yeah.
like, you can have 5 clients
Mm.
and you can be a bit messy and you can
Yeah.
kind of chug yourself through. And then with 10 clients, your
Yep.
system becomes completely unsustainable
Yep.
where you have to go back and rip everything and start over. And
Yep.
this is why it's almost counterintuitive where you focus on things which seem frivolous and trivial in the
Yep.
start because you don't actually see the ramifications of it. But
Mhm.
that's the difference between a winning company and a losing company.
That's right.
So my question here is, you mentioned that there is a common denominator, but I guess maybe at some abstract level, but I feel like the tool sets are very different
Yeah.
depending on where the stage a company's in.
So it's interesting. So there's probably 10 tools in the hot system, and not every company is going to use all 10, right? So
Right.
it kind of spans the different things that you might run into as a company. But to your point, like from an operational standpoint, all these things will work, especially this is mainly written for manufacturing. Okay, it could work in other industries, but it's mainly written for manufacturing. So this can work in any manufacturing capacity. Now, to your point, I had to sell my company because I scaled too fast, and I couldn't handle $600,000 of receivables to myself. Like that's myself giving a
Ah,
$600,000 loan. And so every turnaround, I've learned some valuable things, and that was one of them. So now in this company I'm running today, we're making sure that we have built to scale. So now we are building so that if we were 50% bigger tomorrow, we're ready. You know what I mean? And that's
hmm,
that. Now it's also easier when you work for a $7 billion company, than when you're running your own to do that. But that's basically how we have put it.
right.
You know?
So, just out of curiosity, are you mainly focused on like corporate manufacturing kind of companies, or are you working with like innovative startups where there's just very unconventional,
Yeah.
out of the box kind of?
So kind of funny because the answer, of course, is both. So when I get paid, it's usually based on these corporate startup or corporate manufacturing companies, large corporate manufacturing companies. I do have an oil Bitcoin company off to the side. That was a startup that we were working through.
Oil Bitcoin company?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell
So
me more about that.
Bitcoin mined off of oil wells, so stranded gas. Use the stranded gas to produce the electricity and mine Bitcoin.
Where?
You
That's
can,
crazy.
well, it's in Oklahoma. I've got a well in Kansas, and then we also do some on grid stuff. We've got some
Can we
different
talk about that for just a
Yeah,
moment? Because
sure.
I'm
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
kind of fascinated about that.
Yeah.
So I was just speaking to someone the other day,
Mhm.
and they were mentioning how they were mining from their home. And my first question was, how is that still
Yeah.
profitable? I
Mhm.
mean, you can't compete with these companies that buy at large mass and they're in freezing cold countries,
Yeah.
so they save a ton of money on cooling systems,
Yeah.
like they're like someplace in Russia or
Mhm.
China. Um, what's the profit like? Because also the halving cycles, like this whole
Yeah.
profitability of mining is just becoming
Yeah.
really razor thin.
Yeah.
So what's the
Yeah.
advantage of doing it where you're describing?
Yeah, so interesting. I love this topic. So the company is Player One Energy, and let's put it this way. So if you're mining at home, you might have electricity costs of potentially upwards of 10 or more cents, a kilowatt. If you mine with a corporation, which is one of the things my company does, is goes to corporations, finds excess kilowatts and convinces them to allow us to use them, and then either third parties
Mm,
it or mines it ourselves, we might get anywhere from 4 to 7 cent um, energy, maybe even less if we get the right deal. Now, if you mine on a oil well, you're talking 1 to 3 cents energy. Now, there's give and takes, right?
wow.
Because it's not super steady. The gas comes out at different rates. You know what I mean? So you may
Right.
not be going full bore the whole time. And
So
so,
so so help me understand. So you
yeah.
go to companies that have just excess energy
Mhm.
needs. You tell, hey, offshoot some of that excess energy needs, and we can become
So
profitable
it's not
through
needs.
mining.
It's let's say you had a manufacturing company, and the electric company has given you 15 megawatts. Like that's how much you
Okay.
can flex up to on your
Oh, right. Okay,
land,
I see.
and you're only
Okay.
using 4. I come to you and say, hey, if you give me 5 or 10 of those megawatts, and you allow me to
Right.
be on your property in some
But is
fashion.
it just because they have a good payment plan up to that price point?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. So like that company might, let's say they have a 4 cent a kilowatt, deal for up to 15
right.
megawatts, and they're only using 4. The electric company is
Right,
actually
but are they
happy.
still paying? Are they still paying for the full
Yeah,
amount?
no, no, no. They're still paying 4. So they sign a corporate deal. Corporate deals are pretty
Right,
attractive.
but are they still using the complete buffer of energy that they could, or
They are
they're
not.
like,
Mm-mm.
so they're not, and they're not being charged for it either unless you come in and start
Right,
using it. Right,
right.
they just have a good plan. Okay,
Yeah,
I see.
and the electric company actually likes it because you're utilizing more energy. The company
Mm.
likes it because
Right,
we pay them some form of either rent or profit sharing.
right,
you
right,
know and then now the trade-off for them, of course, is we're going to use something on their property, either inside their
mm,
building or offsite their building. um and then they and then if they ever need to flex up, they're not going to be able to without talking to the electric company again, because
right.
they'll have rented us that electricity.
Cool.
you know and so like that's something that really, and it's replicable. I don't care if people replicate it because there's a million companies out there, right? But but it's something that we have been doing, and we're about to land our first couple deals, and those can be pretty big, because there are
Right,
companies out there, oddly enough, that have 10 or 20 megawatts extra energy in their contract, and they can just use it. So it's a really interesting business model. But this is like the orthodoxy smashing from the hot system, where you take something that everybody always believes is true, which is either I can either mine at home at 10 cents, I can go out to one of these huge mega mines and buy a portion of their mining for 7.5 cents, or I can go to somebody who's got excess capacity at 4 or 5 cents and mine at 4 or 5 cents.
right,
Or I can get really crazy and go to an oil well and mine for 2 cents. You know what I mean?
right.
And like, I don't want to, nobody in Bitcoin understands oil. Nobody in oil understands Bitcoin. We're one of the only companies that understand both,
Interesting. Mm.
and we've got both revenue streams. Like that company I'm pretty excited about. Like it's going to
Is it
be.
just mining Bitcoin? Or any other like proof of work coins
No,
that you or
we
blockchains?
haven't gotten into that yet, but really at this point, we're really just third party in the electricity. So we
Mm,
could start mining at any given time. But right now we're focused on landing a couple of deals that are cash flowing hard.
cool.
And then we'll
All right.
drive that into, yeah.
Yeah. So back to hot for a
Yes.
second. So yeah, you were saying.
Yeah. So again, no, that was a great segue because that's how you can use the orthodoxy smashing portion of HOT, the Karelin method of focus times, activity times efficiency times focus, because we're spending all our time on how do we grow this business. When you get into the bigger companies, the continuous improvement is a lot more important. So the 52 projects in 52 weeks, I've got a methodology on how to get 52 small projects done in 52 weeks. And these are the kinds of things that crazy to your P&L. Like if you do 52 continuous improvement projects in 52 weeks, everyone tries to bite off these huge continuous improvement projects, or they map out 8 for the rest of the year that they're going to do. And what happens is the huge ones either never get done or they take all your resources forever. The 8, by the time you get to the 6th one, it's not the most important anymore. So my process allows you to get quick bites. You get the 80% of what you're trying to accomplish done really fast. And you get that benefit. And then you see what pops up next. What's the next bottleneck? And you dive after that. It's almost the theory of
Divide and
constraints.
conquer.
Yeah, it's the theory of constraints. You're waiting for the next bottleneck to pop up and dive after that. And then the other thing that mine does that's really, really important for people to understand is if you go into an average company and you look at how many people are on how many projects, the good guys, your favorite 5, right, are going to be on all the projects. They're doing all the work. You're stressing out your top 5 guys who are also having the top 5 jobs.
Yeah, like 10% of the people do 90% of the work.
That's right. And those same 10% are basically responsible for delivering all your revenue, which is a problem because then you're pulling them off of revenue projects to dive into continuous improvement. So my process kind of spreads the work out, make sure everybody's only on one project at a time. So you can actually get 52 projects done in 52 weeks, and you're only on one project at a time, and your best guys aren't leading projects all the time. So every one of these things can be put into big companies or small companies, but there are different ones that work better for different companies.
Right.
Yep.
You got a lot of books behind you.
Yeah.
Where do you develop these strategies?
Yeah. So some strategies like the 80-20 squared strategy obviously comes from the 80-20 strategy. Right. And so sometimes you're just taking a strategy and expanding on it, like activity times efficiency equals results is a strategy that a lot of people have used in different methods before, but activity times efficiency times focus, and it completely changes the equation. Now, grandiose goals, that just came straight from hypomania. You know what I mean? The 52 continuous improvement projects was kind of straight from hypomania. So some of them come directly from the bipolar. Some of them are just expansions on other people's where it takes one little aspect of bipolar, whether it's focus, or the orthodoxy smashing is a really, really interesting one where you just try and figure out, name all the things in your industry that everyone thinks is true that might not be, and then see what happens if they're not. And that's where all the money is made in boring businesses. You change one thing in a boring business and you can completely change the whole industry.
So let me ask you this, Todd. Would you consider yourself a problem solver?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. What turnaround management is, problem solving. So,
and were you always good at solving problems, or like what made you head down this path?
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I can take...
So I had my first post-MBA job. I did a really good job on turning.
And what did you study in college? Let's start there.
Okay, so political science, of course. So I'm one of those politics geeks. But then I went and got an MBA in marketing and finance. So after the MBA, I went into Whirlpool Corp. And I did good on this first project. It was kind of a small P&L at $100 million. But in Whirlpool, that's small. And then I went to them and I knew I wasn't going to get promoted doing $100 million categories. And I said, I want the dirtiest, nastiest, horrible job that you have. And they put me in side-by-side refrigeration. At the time, and these are just the refrigerators that open like this. At the time, they were losing $175 million a year, this category. And they fired everybody, and they brought in new people. And so for the next 4 years and a couple different roles.
Sometimes that's the way to get change, because you have like just horrible thinkers at the top who are stuck in bureaucratic ways, and it's just there's no path forward unless you jolt the system. And it's kind of like you can jolt the system for the worst, but at some point you got nothing to lose.
You're right. And so but that's basically how I got into it. It was over the next 4 years.
And then you're like, hey, if I can fix this mess, why can't I fix other messes?
That's exactly right.
That's such a great it's like you're doing your multivariable calculus
Yeah.
course, and then it's like you have like there's 10 problems up until like the hardest one. So like every one is incrementally more complicated. And then at some point you're just like, fuck it, let me just do the hardest one.
Yep.
You'll spend 3 times longer doing it but once you get the hardest one, then you start working backwards, you're like, all these problems are so much easier.
That's right.
And you instead of looking up at progress, you're looking down at it now. You're like, I've done this like really, really messy, ugly job.
Yeah.
And wow, if I can handle something like this and I can see progress in something like this, wait, there's a million other things that are easier.
That's exactly right. And I read The Theory of Constraint, or I read The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt, and that was he is big on the theory of constraints, and that's what I applied to that category. Now, I wasn't leading that category. I was high up, but there were other people, and then I had a couple different roles, but we did turn around the entire thing. And then next, I was like, give me another one. And they gave me Sears Laundry, as Sears was going bankrupt, but they were still the largest category in Whirlpool. And so I did it again in Sears Laundry. And then at that point, I started taking the jobs where I was actually running the show.
How do you tell someone, like, see, what you do is a little complicated unnecessarily to like, it's like, for example, someone makes websites, you can show them your portfolio. Here are websites I've made. How do you, is like, how do you sell people what you do? Is this because of word of mouth, or is it like?
Yeah, well, I mean,
do you get data-driven points to say, hey, the company was making X revenue before, now they're making Y?
Yeah, I mean, up till now, I'm just working, right? So selling people is really my next job interview. You know what I mean? And that comes out on the resume, but the numbers are phenomenal. I mean, all 4 of those turnarounds were just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And that's what this hot system produces. It doesn't produce these incremental. You take big risks, you hit them, you take calculated risk, but more importantly, you're in there automating and systematizing and outsourcing and making sure that 100% of your time can be on the stuff that's making money. We always talk about profit per minute. It's how much money are you making every minute of the day. And that's how we all go about it. And you get the whole team running on it. So my whole team knows, like, you make as much money as you can every minute of the day. We talk about meetings, like shorten your meetings, reduce the attendees, cancel the meetings, make it a phone call, make it a walk down the hall, like just get out of this mindset of busy work. Busy is not brilliant. Busy is not breakthrough. You know what I mean? You've got to put all your time on what's making money. And when people start doing that, if you have a 150-person company and they're all doing that, you're going to make so much more money than a year ago when you had a 150-person company and they were just trying to stay busy,
What's your job title on LinkedIn?
Right now, general manager. So I run one of the divisions at JBT Morel.
So general manager is a very watered down description of what you do.
Well,
I mean, you're in the same category of a lot of people who do very different things than you.
My previous job title was president. A lot of companies have gotten away from president because they have to pay you more. So now they call you GM, VP, or GM, I mean, but like,
you should give yourself a title that's more descriptive of your, unique mindset and perspective.
Yeah.
I think you should coin a term. I think it's so.
I like the Stagnation Assassin. I use that on my own just to be funny, but it'll also be on the website and everything. But how companies are, like, they have job titles across the whole 40,000 person company. So, but general manager is a pretty well understood title inside of manufacturing. It means you're the boss.
So Todd, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I've got a new website coming at toddhagopian.com. I have a current website at hypomanictoolbox.com, which interestingly enough was the title of the book, and now the editor, of course, is changing it at the last minute. So now, or the publisher, so now we're going to change it to The Unfair Advantage. That'll be the new name of the book. It'll be pre-order in October, and it'll launch in January. So I'll have a new title and a new cover and everything, and it'll all flip over to toddhagopian.com here soon. So you can already go and sign up for updates, but it'll be up in a couple weeks probably.
Todd, you have an amazing mind, my friend. It's been an honest pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.